We'll begin now with 3-minute opening statements, and we'll start at this end with Shinar.
Hello, my name is Shinar Abraham. We've been property owners here since 1971 and began building our permanent home in 1976. My first board service was from 1979 to 1985. I served as board president for 3 of those years. During that time, we completed a state-of-the-art water facility, winning first in a county-wide blind tasting contest. In 1985, the entire board was recalled over a septic tank issue. But by 1987, it was apparent the district was in trouble. The district was, for the first time, under a grand jury investigation. In early 1988, their report stated the lack of governance, oversight, and poor accounting resulted in the board's failure to collect thousands of dollars owed by customers for previous years. I returned to the board in September of '87, serving as president in 1989. And during that period, we restored the financial stability of the district. In 1991, I was again asked to serve. I was elected in February of '91 as a write-in candidate and served until February '94. When I left the board, we had a capital improvement fund, a reserve fund, and no monies were owed to any employee for overtime or vacation. This philosophy of controlling cost continued on until 1998, when the then board made a voluntary retroactive payment of $100,000 to CalPERS for the district manager's retirement. Now, we had that money, so the district was quite solvent at that time. Note that in 1993, the manager was denied his request for a retirement fund based on the excessive costs for our small district. These are just some of the reasons that I'm asking for your vote on November 2nd. All of what I have said is true and accurate and is a matter of public record. One only needs to read the grand jury report to establish this fact. Thank you for your attention.
Sherwin?
Hi, my name is Sherwin Gott, and I'm running for the board of directors. The reason I'm running is for a couple reasons. One, water is important to all of us. Without water here in Lompico, we wouldn't be able to live here. More so than electricity, more so than a lot of other things. So as a community member, water is super important to me. We're all part owner of the utility. Whether you guys realize it or not, you're all part owner. 1/500th of an owner. That's how they charge you. That's what you are. But you're all an owner. So I'm glad the 30 or 40 people that showed up out of the 500 homes did, because I really feel that we're usually woefully unrepresented as a community. More people need to participate. The good news about the district is I've done a lot of research, and we're not as bad as the grand jury make it sound or other publications. Our infrastructure is really to the good. 85% or better, according to our consultants. We have just fixed some major leaks that have actually made things better for our water system overall. And I've really looked at the San Lorenzo Valley Water District plan. I'm really for local control here for the board. And I've developed an alternate plan, which I've handed out to some of the people out here in the audience, which is basically just based on true costs, using the San Lorenzo Valley Water Plan as a guide. So I hope everybody looks at it. Cost is important to every homeowner here. Bottom line to this is, I think over 30 years, it'll be about $2,000 if we do it here ourselves, around $2,300 if we do it here within the community and finance it here in the community. If we take a bond, it'll be approximately $12,000. So for me, I'm also motivated by the fact that we can do the same job for a lot less money. I want everybody to educate themselves, take a look, vote the way you feel is best for your heart and the community, and thanks a lot for coming. Thank you very much.
Robert?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Rob Hansel. I'm glad you could all be here tonight. It's good seeing people get involved in our community. First of all, I'd like to thank the Lompico Community Center and the League of Women Voters for hosting and moderating this event. I think it's important for the community to meet and get to know the candidates and where they stand on issues that are important to them. When you elected me to this position 4 years ago, things were pretty much business as usual. The district was poorly managed, and board oversight was slight, if not non-existent. Customer service and relations were poor as well, and money was not being spent properly. For the first 2 years, I was often a minority of 1 against 4 votes. I believe that my persistence in trying to do what was right for the district raised community awareness and eventually led to the 8 candidates who ran for the 3 available seats 2 years ago. If not for the present board, I have no doubt the district would have collapsed and got into receivership by now. In the last 2 years, we have discovered numerous financial discrepancies and have since put an end to the practice of spending more than we are taking in. The district is run more efficiently and professionally. Board members and policies are being followed. Our books and financial records are more transparent to anyone who wishes to see them. And customer relations have improved. We've been able to catch up with some of the tasks that have been neglected, such as long overdue replacement of filters in our treatment plant, improving and actually monitoring, testing, and reporting our water conditions, flushing hydrants or mains on a regular schedule, and reconnecting a hydrant that has been offline for 4 years now. We have developed a board policy manual and updated our personal manual. Directors can now see the bills that need to be paid. Delinquent accounts are now followed up, and foreclosures are put on property tax bills. Everybody now pays a ready-to-serve charge, and everybody pays late fees if applicable. Everybody is treated the same. We have now a no-cash policy to discourage embezzlement, and just this last month have repaired all 6 of our water storage tanks, thereby saving over 15,000 gallons of water daily, extending our pump life now that we can actually shut them off periodically, which in turn means that we are saving money in electricity. Now we're looking into a possible merger with SLV. I believe a better future for our district customers lies in the consolidation, but I will continue to run our district as though we will remain separate and will support the will of my constituents, whatever that is. I spent all day today at a strategic planning policies workshop, and the woman conducting it has 26 years working on boards and with water districts, and according to her, 20 years ago, you needed at least 250 connections to remain viable, but now you need at least 500 with rising costs and new regulations. We currently have 494 connections. The current board may not always agree on every issue, but we do work well together and strive to seek common ground. I'm proud to be part of this board, seeking the respect with which its members treat one another and constituents. I'm especially proud of any part I may have played in bringing this change about. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
Good evening. I worked for 5 years on the board recently, and then continued onward as a member of the financial committee, the budget committee of the water board. And there were definitely problems. Some of them were certainly beyond our control, like the government took $80,000 of our property tax money, and there was nothing we can do about that. That's the Prop 1A stuff, where the government decides to go ahead and to balance their budget, takes property tax money from the county. We also lost money in trying to solve Lower Lake. We spent $60,000 doing that. We lost about $60,000 also when we asked people to conserve for 2 years because we were in a drought. And these kind of money losses they don't sound like very much, 60,000, 80,000, 60,000. they don't sound like much, except we only have $400,000 of income per year. We're a small water company. And when these things couple up, they can crash our budget. They actually took away all our reserves and all of our capital improvement funds. I was concerned about various things in our financial reporting to the board. We used an odd kind of accounting. It somehow was inherited forward. It was called accrual by the staff. They didn't report to us how much money had come in. Our income was not reported that way. It was how much was billed. So our income amount was how much we had billed the population, not how much we had received. And unfortunately, this disallowed us from being ever able to check the income against the bank balance. This was very disconcerting, and it proved to be somewhat fatal in that we had lost money before my time, after my time. We have lost money in the front end of the system, where we have cash monies coming in, or various different ways. A cash float in the office that people can.
Thank you. Next, we will have 2-minute responses to questions for all the candidates. The first one is, why do you want to be on the board? And we'll start with Sherwin.
Well, as I said before, water is important to all of us. I feel very connected with the community. I know I'm not leaving. I know a lot of people here have lived for 20, 30, 40 years, and I'll probably be one of those people who end up here. I really love Lompico. As I said, water is really important. Cost is also important, also in a bad economy. And so, as a project manager with construction experience, a lot of construction experience, I just wanted to look at the numbers. Once I started looking at the numbers, I realized that we can do this on our own for a lot less than what it's been put out there for. Hence the reason I put out the handouts with the actual quotes, because I really feel if we're a community, we should pay exactly what it costs and no more or no less. We need to do what it takes, but we don't want to pay more just to pay it. I think bonding is a bad idea, because interest is overall, if you look at the plan, most of their money is made up in interest. If you look at the overall cost, even the SLV plan, it's all mostly in interest. My plan basically covers all the infrastructure, everything in the whole entire water district. I've spent a time looking at every piece of the district. It covers everything. The laterals, all new tanks. I want to point out too, San Lorenzo Valley kind of messed up our tank count. They don't even know what we're made of. They said we had 200,000 gallon tanks. We have 400,000 gallon tanks. The Lewis tanks are 100,000. The Madrone tanks are 100,000. So I think if they're really interested in us and they've spent a lot of time, why don't they get to know us really and understand our infrastructure? That's the time I've spent since I've declared my candidacy. I put together actual numbers. And even if I don't get elected, I encourage the board to take a look at the quotes, take a look at the numbers, and let's make sure that we don't get taken for a ride, especially a 30-year ride. That's a bad idea. Otherwise than that, I'd be happy to answer any other question you guys have. Thank you very much.
Robert?
I'd like to remain on this board because I think the present board has really good continuity. We get along very well. We've made, I think, great accomplishments, especially in the last 2 years I've been on the board. I'd like to finish what I kind of started here because we're going down a new avenue now. We're going without a district manager for now. We are staying compliant with our consultant. We are able to pay our bills. And we've gotten into the black, and we have only 200,000 gallon tanks and 460,000 gallon tanks. They need to be replaced soon. We had repairs made to them just this last couple weeks, and we're not leaking as much water. That's an improvement. We've made other really good improvements. We are making, I think we're a lot better than what we were. But basically, I would like to finish what I had a role in starting.
Sean?
I was actually asked by 4 different members of the current board to run for this job. And I certainly would like to continue working on the financials for Lompico Water District. There have been lots of problems in the past. I never finished all of what I was saying. We lost $100,000 in increases in employee costs. And some of that is just due to being Anthem Blue Cross health benefits or being CalPERS retirement benefits. Some of these things they become kind of beyond your control unless you can get out of them. So I would like to, and we have new things, like everyone is saying. We need an upgrade in the facilities part of the system, and we need to finance that. Our bonds are coming to an end. We have 3 bonds and 1 loan that we are paying off, and they are almost all paid off. They will be paid off in 2016, 17, and 18. So for us to need new upgrades on our facilities in themselves I don't see that as much of a challenge as it might be viewed by others. The biggest problem is finding bonds, a way to do this, way to pay for it, and cover it across a long period of time. Thank you.
Shinar?
Thank you. I want to restore financial stability to the board. It's quite obvious that somehow that idea has been lost over the years. I certainly think we need to develop a plan for a 1-year, 2-year, and a 5-year to rebuild the water district. I also want to ensure that the board focuses on the most important issues facing the district first. An example of what I mean is, it took approximately 18 months for this current board to allocate $6,500 to repair leaking tanks that were losing water by their own admission at the rate of 10 gallons a minute. That amounts to the total production of one of our wells. This was treated water, and it was just running on the ground. I also have read the grand jury report, and I wish that most of you would be able to do that also. And what you would find is that the grand jury disagrees. They say that this board has not fulfilled their responsibilities and have not complied with the numerous recommendations that were listed to them. One thing that has happened is that our wage costs have gone up, whereas throughout the rest of this county, they have remained flat. I wonder why that happened. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, do you favor a merger with SLV Water District? And we'll start with Robert.
I do favor a merger with SLV Water District. I think the pros far outweigh the cons. Most importantly, we have fire protection. We barely have enough water to supply the households we have right now. Fire protection, it would result in possible lower insurance rates. New source of water, the rates are more affordable. We get more water for less money. They're larger, more experienced than we are. They've been around since 1941. Have a higher standard of professionalism. They have more employees that are on call, larger staff. They have a lot more money in the bank than we do. They have more financial stability than we do. They have a well-functioning organizational structure. And they have a website that you can get immediate access to agendas, minutes, special reports, budgets, contact info for board members and staff. I think it's a no-brainer. There are, I don't know if any cons. Maybe, I would like to limit growth in the canyon, but we have 494 hookups and 5 meters available, and nobody's running on up to our door to get them right now. And it might be more difficult for us to get on SLV board, but we have over 740 registered voters in the canyon. And if there's somebody we wanted on their board, we could all band together and back that person and probably get them on the board. But yes, I do favor a merger, but I will vote. If it comes down to a board vote, I will go with what my constituents want.
Sean?
I have a great respect for the SLV Water District. I have friends in both on the board and in the staff, and I think they do a good job. I also think it is not up to a board of 5 people to decide whether we will merge or not. I think it's up to the people of Lompico. So personally, I would like to do like Flo did, and we have a vote. Not necessarily run it through the elections department and cost us $3,000 to $7,000, but do a vote, 1 vote per house or 2 votes per house or however we want to do it, and make that decision canyon-wide. The thing I think is most important is that we have, no matter whether we merge or don't merge, is we have these infrastructure things that we must do to merge with them or not merge with them. To keep the water system running, we must do a certain amount of upgrade or fixes or whatever you want to call them, new tanks or whatever. And these things must be paid for by us, no matter which way we look at it. And I think we should address that first. That's the most important thing we have to look at. And then we should have the people of the canyon vote on merging or not merging for whatever reasons that come up. But first we have to work on the other parts of it. We must get our structure up. Thank you.
Shinar?
I guess this is still on. The current value of our district in today's money is about $10 million. This was established back in 1999 in order to be able to substantiate a $13,500 cost for our meters. This idea of a merger is not new. We had these discussions in the 80s, and San Lorenzo Water was as unreasonable then as they are now. They want us to spend $2.5 million and then turn over a $12.5 million asset for them to have. As far as an interconnection is concerned and the availability of more water, also in the 80s, as president, I signed an agreement that was negotiated with all of the water districts from Soquel Creek to the city of Santa Cruz that they were in agreement that interconnections between the districts with wholesale water meters would be accommodated when they were required. Currently, the city of Santa Cruz is, in effect, moving ahead with trying to implement those agreements. So if we were to spend the money for an interconnection, we would automatically be given the extra water where they need. I'm not saying I'm totally against merging with the water district, but I think that the deal they're offering is pretty poor.
Thank you, Sherwin.
Well, after listening to all the other candidates up here, it reminds me why I really am running. I agree with Shinar. The fact is, our water district is worth a lot of million, 12 million plus in today's dollars, probably. No reason to give that away and pay to give it away. I do not agree on joining the San Lorenzo Water District, and the reason is after going through the research I did, I really feel that the first plan that they put out back in July is heavily padded, and it concerns me that I would join a party that is trying to take distinct financial advantage of me. And I mean that from any business sense. We are a business company. We're actually a company. Besides a utility, we're a company. So we have to think like a company. Some of the things that Rob was talking about, San Lorenzo Valley Water has implemented weekly plans, daily plans, monthly plans, yearly plans. But we can do that too. As far as fixing things, I think everybody here just wants to see good, clean water coming out of their tap. So if in fact we have a plan to do that, we can keep the infrastructure up, do it at a low cost. That's what I tried to put together. I have a plan that basically spans 30 years and shows you year by year how much it's going to cost you. Some years we don't even pay anything. Other years it's kind of like a road maintenance issue where we all drive on it, we all use it, so we have to kick in to pay for the things as the upkeep. That's the way my plan has been basically structured, and it's structured on true cost. So I would thoroughly agree that we don't want to do a San Lorenzo Valley Water District plan. I feel the board has actually done a very good job in the last couple of years because they have brought us to a point where we're in the black. That is a great starting point to go for the future. So I think they've worked really hard, and I'd like to go ahead and add to that work and make sure we continue in a positive forward direction at the least expense to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next question. Do you feel the district needs a full part-time general manager versus a contracted water consultancy? And we'll start with Sean.
It's a good question. We moved from a general manager to a consultant this spring, and so we don't have a long history on this. The one thing it does do for us is cut back what had become a serious problem. Our employee costs had run up to close to 3/4 of our income, and that was a very serious problem. It disallowed us from keeping the water system intact. We were spending 3/4 of our money on employee costs, benefits, salaries, and retirement monies. This has cut it back to about 40%, which is good. The unfortunate part of that is that the board is now required to do a huge amount of the work that the manager was doing. However, it gives us a lot more control over the books and the scene of what is going on and an understanding of the water system, and we have a lot more sight into it, what is going on. And that has helped us understand where we are, why we're there, and what we need to do. So that has been very helpful. There's a lot more visibility as to how the water system is running, what needs to be repaired, and all of that stuff. And so I don't have a yes or a no on this. I think at the moment, to keep us fiscally sound, we must stay where we are.
Thank you. Shania.
This water district, has always operated with a manager. And that manager was paid within the boundaries of what the district could afford. The first manager that I worked with was Patrick Gill. And I remember as president having to review him and make recommendations to the board. And I told Patrick directly that A PERS retirement system was not in the cards for this small of a district, and B, that he had pretty much reached his capacity as a manager as far as income was concerned. This district was not able to continue to give raises. Patrick understood that, and he moved on. And we got a different manager. And the same thing was told to that manager. And then we got a manager named Michael Eagleston. And I personally told him the same thing in 1993 when I was president of the board. And the rest of the board, after I got off in 94, continued with that policy of not putting the district in financial jeopardy by willfully and neglectfully and irresponsibly giving away the money of this district to the management. I still stand by that. I believe we can have a manager, but that manager must be contained within the boundaries of what this district can afford. It is not a good move to ask unprofessionals, as elected board members are, to try and manage a district. Thank you.
Okay. Sherwin?
Manager versus no manager. I believe, and this goes back to what we were just talking about a second ago, about this idea about rules and routines. Most companies use rules and routines to help focus the employees. They know their job, they know what they're supposed to do. That way they can kind of be better at their job. They know what's expected of them, they know what they're supposed to do. If we don't know what we're doing in a management position here with our employees, not having a daily, not having a weekly, not having a monthly, not having a yearly check-off list, that means they're basically free to just kind of do whatever they think they're supposed to do for the day. And of course, there's going to be emergencies every day to adjust to. But the fact of the matter is you should have a plan. You should have a focus. Everybody does. We should too. If we have that in place, we have those routines in place, then no, we really don't need a manager. I believe the board should be more hands-on. I believe the board should know the water district. They should see the water tanks. They should know what's out there. I respectfully disagree with Rob. I physically measured the tanks, every tank. I know exactly how big everyone is because I had to get them quoted. So I really feel it's a hand-on position. I feel everybody should. It's not rocket science what we do here. Water distribution is not rocket science. The system is set up. Financially it can be tricky, but we have good help in place to help us with the books, and we also can figure out from the future with a budget. Once again, for a plan, I've already put out my own 30-year plan that covers everything in the district, and that's based on what the experts have to say about when we have to replace stuff. So I believe that the board can do the job on their own. I don't think we need to spend that, but we need to be more hands-on, and we need to be more back and forth with the community. It shouldn't be so insular. We shouldn't only see 5 or 6 people at the meeting. And if nothing else, if we don't see you personally, then we should be communicating with you in writing, just like they did last month or 2 months ago, so everybody knows what's going on. That's the kind of water board I'd like to see, and I believe that it's not within our reach to do that. Thank you very much.
Robert?
Eventually, yes, I would like to get a manager, but at the present time, we can't afford to pay a manager. What we have going right now is working. We have a consultant that comes in for a few hours a week that keeps them compliant with what certifications required. We do have some service technicians, maintenance operators that have been doing a good job, and they're knowledgeable. We need to bring them up a little bit more, a little more training. It's working for now, but I agree with Mr. Abraham that if we do have a manager, we do need to keep him within, or her within, what we can afford to pay them. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case recently. But I don't believe it's the responsibility of the board to maintain the day-to-day operations of the district. We need to get a manager in there eventually. Perhaps it could be one of the, maintenance, the service techs that we have in there right now. I don't know. But for the time being, it's working, and we are getting projects done. And like I said, we are staying compliant with the consultant that we have. He makes his rounds and makes reports, and he keeps us on top of the day-to-day activities and what needs to be done.
Thank you. How do you see the board being accessible, transparent, and responsive to the community? We'll start with you, Shinar.
Well, number one, you have to ensure that all of your decisions are made in public. And that means that you're not supposed to get together and talk about things with a majority of the board without being at a meeting. I believe that many decisions in the past have been made this way. I'm not saying who or what or why, but certainly on the basis of what I've learned in observing some of the way decisions were made, it's quite apparent that that has been true in the past. How do you be responsive to the community? Well, you do that by being in the community, by spending time in the community, by going out into the community and taking every opportunity to explain the actions of the board. Some of the people on this board have done that, and I commend them for that. They have worked very hard in trying to at least make the board understand what they were doing. What they were doing, unfortunately, was not always the most important things first. And this is also something that has to be discussed with the community. Being open and honest and mindful of your responsibility as elected officials in the state of California with a fiduciary responsibility to adhere to all of the laws in the state of California. Thank you.
Sherwin?
Sherwin.
Sherwin, like the paint.
Yeah.
Thank you. Of course, we should be. This is a community, once again, I want to stress, we're all part owner of the utility. 1/500th. When you get charged at 1/500th, which means we're all equal, we're all the same, we should all be involved. Most of us just want to turn on the water, see good clean water, that's enough. If we see that, we're happy with the water company. If we don't see that, we're not too happy. And then we have to deal with issues. But regularly, most people don't come to the water board meetings. I've gone to quite a few of them lately, and very few people attend the water board meetings. Maybe 5, 8 people at the most I ever counted when I was there, including the board members. So it goes to show you that really, we can't ask you guys to come to the board meetings because you don't have time. Everybody's working, everybody's doing stuff, or you're not concerned because your water's doing great. So all I can say is I think we should be writing you so you all know what's going on. I think you can freely call Debbie down at the office. She's great. She'll take any response. And I think you should be more aware that you are part owner. So don't treat it just like PG&E where you don't really talk to PG&E. You actually, this is your company. You actually should talk. If you have concerns, if you think your water's dirty, this or that, whatever it may be, then you should say something and there should be back and forth. I think it should be on a personal level, and if it's not on a personal level, then it should be a written level and it should be every month with your bill. I think the board recently has started doing that. I commend them for that action, and I continue to want to go that direction so everybody feels more part of the district, more part of the community, and feels like there's more of a two-way communication instead of just paying your bill and that's all there is to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert?
I think the board in the last 6-7 months has been very transparent, very open to public comment, the needs of the community. A number of times I've had people come up to me voicing their concerns. I've put items on the agenda for the people coming up to me. We've moved our banking and accounting to the county, making the books more transparent. I think that the board that we have right now, like I say, is more receptive, responsive to the community, and more transparent. We're easy to get a hold of. And if you have any concerns or anything that you need to be placed on the agenda, please come to the meetings. I urge all of you to come to the meeting. You could call me at home. My phone number's out there. Or any of the other board members, call us up at the district office. We'd be glad to hear from you.
Thank you. Sean?
It was at my urging that we move all the books and the banking into the county system. I was quite upset with the way it was all handled, and it was rather obscure. We fell into the same bucket as a lot of companies, talking to Mary Jo Walker. When companies got PCs, they were only read-write access. So you had, the staff were the only people able to touch the thing. Nobody else could, because they could modify their bill or anything they wanted if they had access to the keyboard. Unfortunately, that disallowed you to see the books. We no longer had the journals, which had flip pages where everything was recorded in handwriting. Instead, what you got was reports of what they wanted you to see. So the staff was controlling all things in that manner. They could keep things from you if they wanted, and you wouldn't even know. That was a difficult problem. We're past that. We now have a very good access. I'm hoping we will go ahead and do what Mary Jo said we could do, is give everybody the password to go ahead and read the books of the water company. They're online 24 hours a day down at county, and I think that's a very good thing. Giving everybody the right amount of information about the infrastructure of the water system, the hardware and stuff, I think we'll all see more of that as we come up to doing this rewrite of that, getting bonds. You will be voting on whether we do this or not. Thank you.
Thank you. What would you see as short-term and long-term maintenance plan that's needed for this district? And we'll start with Sherwin.
Actually, I put it on my 30-year plan, and I think the first thing we need to do is fix both the water treatment, because whether you people believe it or not, we have no water treatment on the west side of the canyon. The Lewis treatment plant's been offline for like 6 years, something like that. They do try to chlorinate it. They do chlorinate your water. Your water's safe. Don't get me wrong here. But as far as water treatment to remove iron and manganese, which is the color and the hardness of your water, we don't have that anymore. But we can definitely put that in line. So I put that up there right up at the top of the priorities as far as time to get fixed. The service laterals, which are bursting 30, 40 a year, those things also need to be fixed. So all the polybutyl service laterals need to be fixed. Unfortunately, that's an expensive fix. I figured it out at $1,200 a pop, even more than SLV figured it out at. And that's an expensive fix, so the community has to be really behind that one if we're going to put the money into that particular fix. After that, the water tanks basically have a lifespan. Our expert has already given their opinion. The person who actually fixed the tanks wrote a letter and said, this is how long every tank is going to last if it's fixed. So I basically used that to go ahead and schedule out the tank replacement over 30 years. So that's pretty much covered. So the only thing is service laterals, definitely get the water treatment back online as quickly as possible. Those seem to be the most immediate fixes. Long-term fixes as per scheduled, and also the MEMCOR filter. We seem to forget everybody who lives on the Lake Boulevard side. We get a lot of our water from the Mill Creek treatment plant, and that has this MEMCOR filter that cleans our water. We need to pay attention. That filter is a very expensive piece of machinery. Maintenance needs to be kept up on it, so I would definitely keep that in mind as one of the priorities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert?
At this next board meeting, I will be putting on the agenda that I think we need to service our pressure reducing stations that we have throughout the canyon. I know there's a lot of homes that have an incredible high rate of water pressure, exceeding 200 psi in some places. We need to continually seek ways to bring our costs down. We need to replace our tanks. That's going to cost a little bit of money. We have repaired them, and for the two larger tanks, that's good for 3 to 7 years, according to the contractor who repaired them for us. We need to explore possible funding sources to upgrade our infrastructure. We need to replace about 40% of our service laterals. Mr. Gott was correct when he said we're bursting about 30 to 40 of them a year. It's costing us money and wasted water, treated water. And we need to replace the service laterals on a maintenance schedule rather than when they fail. And then I think that we need to also look into merging with SLV. I think that would be our best choice for long term. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Sean?
I mean, I'm not an expert at this. I'm a systems programmer analyst, but I did graduate with an engineering degree from Cal Poly, and there's quite a few things actually that need to be looked at and addressed, and I don't know that I know them all. One is pressure in the lines. One is pressure against the lines. We still have not solved like Lower Lake Boulevard, and that needs to be solved. We finally got a hydrant in there, so we can at least drain the stub ends of these loop systems that we have throughout the water system, and that's important. I tried to get that a long time ago, but it just didn't happen. One vote in a board of 5 doesn't always get you where you want to go. But anyway, and the tanks have more problems than just being tanks. They have a great ability to slosh in a big earthquake. That is what caused us the major amount of trouble we had in the '89 quake. And so we need dampers in these big tanks to keep them from pushing themselves off the pads they sit on, from knocking themselves apart. So there's a lot of things. I would like us to actually go back to what the original plan is. We're missing a line that goes up to the Madrone tank from the office, and that's been out for a good 10 years. And that, to solve that, we're pushing pressure uphill from the office water treatment of the creek stuff to the pond. And then the pond pumps it up to the Madrone tank, and that's okay, but it's not, what it's doing is putting a lot of pressure on lines along Lake Boulevard and Coleman.
Thank you. Shannon?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that we don't need to do, and that is we don't need to reconnect the line on Lower Lake Boulevard. The red herring of a loop system needing to be restored is exactly that. There are 2 separate pressure zones that feed that area. You cannot move that water in a loop. It never has been that way, and it doesn't need to be that way now. The reason that pipe even extended through the slide area to a fire hydrant was just for that, required fire hydrant. The water never went past that fire hydrant, nor will it ever again. The fire hydrant is now being serviced from the cross-country line that feeds the houses that are below that water. That fire hydrant. Yes, the cross-country line that feeds the Madrone tank has been out of operation for a long time. It's got bad pressure valves that keep the water from coming back down once you pump it up. The way we are pumping it up now is more difficult and more expensive. Why no one ever addressed that problem for what they tell me now is 10 years is beyond me. But I only have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to close with saying Rick Harrington, a member of the board, has been working on a program to train low-paid people on how to replace these failing lines, and to have a program to do that will be within the water district's ability to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you plan to pay for the maintenance required by our water district, both short-term and possibly long-term? And let's start with Robert.
That's a very good question. It's not very easy to answer. A lot of people say, why don't we go out and get a bond or a grant? And that's not that easy. Getting a bond or a grant could take a couple of years. I don't want to raise rates. It's possible, it is possible, it's been discussed with SLV that if we merge with them, we might be able to borrow some money from them. That would be the best solution, really. Because, I mean, if we were to get a bond, there's so much more money. We've got to come up with another $150,000 to $175,000 just before we can even get started. Having to pay a financial advisor, bond consultant. Before all that, we got to get in engineering for the project. Then we need to find an investment banker or a underwriter. So that's going to cost us about $150,000, give or take, right off the bat. And right now, it's difficult to get a grant because our credit rating is not very good right now. And as far as people that are buying these bonds, there's not a whole lot of people buying them right now. So that would probably be our best choice right now, but we still do need to talk and negotiate with SLV. We're just in the very beginning stages of this merger, if we do merge, very beginning. And it's possible, I'm hoping maybe we can borrow some money from them. You know, they've got money in the bank, they're only making maybe 2% interest on it, maybe we can pay them 4%. That's a tough question to answer, and I really don't want to raise rates.
Thank you. Sean?
Actually, short-term...
Oh, no.
Shinar or Sean? I'm sorry.
Sean.
Damn,
Sean. I know. We'll get to you.
There is a shortage of available money throughout this country, and in Europe. Possibly we can borrow it from China. I really don't know. But it is how we financed. Almost 40 years ago, it's how we financed the rebuild of our system was with bonds. And you see the cost of it on your property tax bill. Mine came today, so it's in your mailbox. And you'll see something called Lompico Water Company Debt Service. And that is how much you're paying to pay off the last of the 1970s dollars that we're paying off. If we could find it, we could get the bonds today. We have very little left to pay in 2010 dollars on our remaining bonds. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. I considering the amount that it will cost us to do these fixes, the ones we know of already, my guess is that it will have to be a loan or a bond, and we will have to put it on the property tax. We cannot adjust your water bill upward to cover this cost. It's too big. And so looking for this money is the next big project. Finding it, finding the best we can get as far as rates and to cover what we want to do as upgrades. Thank you.
Shinar?
Not raising rates is not the solution to this problem. In 1993, as president of the board, I signed the last resolution raising the water rates, not the ready-to-serve charge, but the water rates. It wasn't until just recently that the current board did adjust the water rates, quite frankly, at my urging, because we were serving more than one household from the same water meter. It's too long to go in to tell you how that happened, but as a result, the water district reinstated a previous rate charge for multiple uses. But the important thing is I think they lost direction, the boards, and I'm sure that part of it was the poor management they received, even though they were paying top dollar for that management. So number one, you have to control your cost. You have to control your wages. We currently now have 4 employees that we're paying. We're paying a person in the name of Scott, who was a maintenance person, who was trying to get a Class 2 license. We're paying the consultant $1,600 a month. We're paying, I believe at this point, the second maintenance person, and we now have a secretary that we're paying. We can't just continue like that. We have to control our cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Sherwood.
All right. You guys, when we talk about costs, we're talking about money. We can't talk about money unless we know how much things cost, right? Makes sense. So you can't really talk about how much things are until you know how much they cost. So one, figure out how much they cost. Whether you agree with my numbers or not, figure out how much they cost. Two, if you believe my numbers, 100,000 gallon tank for the community will cost you $131 a year. For that year, to replace the 100,000 gallon tank, if you had to pay for it out of our own pockets, it's $131. It comes down to $10.91 every month on your bill. That seems reasonable to me. If you're going to buy tires for your car, that's what you would do. You would just buy the tires. You would figure out when you get the money. The whole idea is you want to get the best deal for your money, and you only want to pay what you have to pay. So, and my deal is we really have big things that we have to buy, big issues like the lateral service lines that are $300,000, or the interconnection, which is $300,000, or replacing all the tanks, which is $400,000. But if you sit there and look at it on a year-by-year basis and break it up, you can actually sit there and we'll go, well, I can do that. I can swallow that. The thing is, in this particular 30-year budget, the community has to decide, well, do we want to spend that money to replace the service laterals now? We have to replace the tanks when they fail, so that's kind of a given. But some of this other stuff, the interconnection, the service lateral replacement, even the office computer, you can decide whether or not that's worth your money. But I really think that's how we should do it. As far as long-term, short-term we'll probably have to pay out of our pocket. Long-term, we can get the grants, but grants take about 2 to 3 years. So down in 215, 218, 220, we can work on getting grants for those things. In the immediate future, we have to decide what's our best priorities, what do we want to fix, and probably pay out of our own pocket for the first couple of years. But it's reasonable cost. That's why I put this information out there. It's not some mystery figure. It's not that bad. It's no different than if you were to upkeep anything else in your house.
Thank you. How is this district set up, or the equipment and parts of this district set up, should there be an earthquake or other major disaster? And how would you handle that? Let's start with Sean.
I've been living here almost 40 years, and I think we've had most of those disasters already. We've had terrific floods in the El Niños, and the Mads and Julian effect, and we've had quite a significant earthquake on the earthquake fault that runs right through the east side of the canyon, the Lake Boulevard side of the canyon. It rips right through there, almost through the office, just about right through the office, and then through Loch Lomond. So that affected us quite greatly. It's, it was somewhere between 6.9 and a 7.1 earthquake, very, very significant earthquake. And I guess we've dealt with all those things. My biggest concern actually is floodwaters. They cause a serious problem to us because of the makeup of our soils. We get a lot of pressure against our lines. We have miles of pipeline, and we get slips that happen all the time, slide slips and stuff. And these pressures against the pipelines, and we have over 50 roads with pipe under them, cause risk to our system. When we get a break, it can cause a huge mess. It can flood a house, destroy a road. It can cause all kinds of trouble. And so I am concerned about that. I'm not sure of a fix for it. We can't change the hills and make them some other kind of soil. We can't. It's a pretty difficult problem. Our best thing is identifying and trying to solve the problem as it is.
Thank you. Shinar?
Well, Sean's certainly right. We've certainly experienced all of those. Those of us who have lived here through them recognize and remember them. Certainly Rick Harrington remembers the generators that we had to haul up that we bought from the state gave us a couple. And we even had National Guardsmen who were running those generators so the treatment plant would still work. We had Lompico Road closed forever because of a washout. We had slides that closed the road after that. We've had many of those things, and this community has always risen to the challenge and has always come out and rebuilt the district and weathered those storms. We're mountain people. We like where we live. We're proud of the fact that we can take care of ourselves. And I believe we can do that again. But what we must remember is that we have to be efficient with how we spend our money. And as I indicated in my opening statement, for some reason, boards in the past have not done that. Now, by firing the district manager, which I didn't have any objection to. I can tell you that in 1994, he was very much under the gun for doing a better job. Otherwise, he was going to get fired then. So I only have 30 seconds, and I'll thank you for your attention.
Sherwin?
I'd like to make a public service announcement right now for the CERT people. If we have a giant earthquake, the water district is going to fall apart. The 4-inch and 6-inch main lines are most undoubtedly going to break. We run off of hydrostatic pressure, which means we run off of the pressure from the tanks that pushes the water down. We don't have any pumps, really. We mostly run on hydrostatic pressure. So that means if we have a major earthquake, you guys, my first thing, and here's my public service announcement, is fill up your bathtubs, get as much water as you can, put it aside, because probably if the water system breaks in a major catastrophe, it's not going to be a quick fix. It's going to be a months and months and months fix. And even if we get FEMA in here and get all the stuff, it's months and months. So I can only say that we hope that doesn't happen. Otherwise than that, as far as short-term small things, I think the water district's in pretty good shape. Like I said, we had our consultants say that we're probably 85% to the good compared to all the other water districts around us as far as quality of pipes. So I think our infrastructure is in good shape. Otherwise, in a major earthquake, please help yourselves. Get as much water as you can. Put it aside. And I'm sure everybody on the water board, and that was the question, what would you do? We would do our damnedest to get it back online. And I think everybody here would say the same thing. But otherwise than that, don't kid yourself. In a major catastrophe, that's why they call it a catastrophe. So please be aware, be ready. You're all Lompicans, so thank you very much.
Robert?
Good job.
I honestly don't know how our tanks and infrastructure would hold out to an earthquake. I think about it, I've raised that question myself, and I worry about it. It held up, our tanks held up back in the '89 quake. And since then, they've been bolted down. Or maybe, did we lose one? Did we lose a tank?
We lost some Madrone tanks.
Okay. Okay, well, I stand corrected.
3 of them. 3 tanks we lost.
Okay, well, since then, they've been bolted down, but their foundations are wood. And they're older now, and they're not in as good a shape as they were 20 years ago. I honestly don't know. Like I said, I brought that question up myself, and I worry about it. I think that with stainless steel tanks, they would be on, a thick concrete and steel slab. They would all be bolted down, and I have a lot more confidence in the steel tanks than I do the ones now. But if we did have a major earthquake, I'm sure they would probably withstand the smaller ones, but if we had a big one like we did over 20 years ago, I don't know. Like I said, I worry about that, and I would like to upgrade the tanks, get new tanks to avoid something like that.
Thank you. What do you think is your highest priority as a board member or serving on the board? We'll start with you.
Thank you. Restore the financial stability of the district. Let me repeat that. Restore the financial stability of the district. If I'm elected, this will have been the 3rd time that I have served on the board along with other board members, not certainly alone, and we have restored the financial stability of the district. This is the utmost important thing that we can do. After that, we can begin to think about some of the other important things that we have to do. We do have to have long-term planning. We do have to have money set aside. Up until, listen, for years and years and years, this water district was able to function as a viable water district. And it wasn't only because we had a new water district. You always have problems. And yet, I guess the luxury of having money in the bank was just too much for some of the boards to be able to stand. Because quite frankly, some of the boards spent money like drunken sailors on leave. And again, I don't believe they really understood that oath of office. This is the same as being governor. It is no different. The responsibilities that you carry as an elected official in this water district are exactly the same as those of the governor of the state of California. Thank you.
Sherwin?
My first priority is work with Lois, who's worked with the books. Just make sure everything's okay. See the stability financially of the company and see where we stand. That'd probably be my first priority. My second priority would be to come up with a plan and put those routines in place so we can better function as a utility, so we have a little more focus. And that wouldn't take very much. That's just writing up some guidelines. My third priority would be to try to get the treatment plant and the MEMCOR plant serviced as quickly as possible, hence the reason I put it up in the front of my thing. I think everything else is debatable. And of course, my overall priority would be to improve the amount of water we have in the water distribution system, whether it's via new tanks, new wells, interconnection, whatever the community sees fit. But I think everybody would feel better in cases of dry years and fires where the community really feels at threat that those issues are addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Robert?
I do agree that to restore the financial stability of this company is number one. It's going to be a difficult task, but that is, I believe, the most important thing. We need to replace our tanks badly. We need to bring our infrastructure up to par. I think a merger is the best solution for long-term viability. And I also think that listening to the needs of the people in this canyon is very important as well.
I started on the board in November of '03. We had $69,000 in the bank. That's it. When I got off the board, let's see, and at the end of '08, we had $24,000 in the bank. We had gone down, but we only had so much. One of the problems is that we could not see a lot of where our expenditures were going, although I have a fairly good write-up on what our costs were. Today we have a much better look, and we have a lot less cost in employee expenses. So we are starting to actually, we should be able to build capital again, but not having any reserve whatsoever, every cost is coming out of our general budget. It is slaying us. It would be, I'm looking forward to us hopefully getting bonds, being able to do the improvements that we have to get done, and having just maintenance costs come out of our general budget rather than everything come out of our general budget. I do think there are some big issue things, like for the tanks, we really could use dampers in them to keep them from sloshing in an earthquake. We had that problem in '89. We had tanks move off their bases because they were sloshing. Anybody who knew anybody with an aquarium during the earthquake, they probably gave up on aquariums. There's very few left in the county. Most people decided we're not going there anymore. Anyway, thank you.
Sure. Can we start with you?
I can't remember.
Yeah, we can. Next question is, what is your reaction to the grand jury report? How helpful was it, or will it be for this incoming board?
Oh, what is it?
Well, does it help you as a board member, and we'll start with Sherwin on this.
I wasn't privy to the grand jury report as far as being there, but I know in general grand jury reports are only as good as the people who testify at them. So I wasn't there. If there was a lot of experts testifying and it gave a true accounting and true picture of the district, then I would say it's fair. I've read the report. I don't personally believe, on my own investigation, I don't believe in everything the grand jury says. I think the biggest part of the grand jury's findings, which I do agree in, is probably the financial findings, where they see that we're in trouble, and I think that's going to require some work, maybe even some rate changing or some type of tiered system to try to even things out. Otherwise than that, any report is good if it sits there and focuses people's attentions on trying to do a better job and trying to make corrections. I didn't see the grand jury making a lot of helpful hints for the district itself, except to say, well, the district's so inadequate, it needs to just be given to somebody else. And I'm not running for that. I don't believe that's true. So in that respect, I don't agree with the grand jury report, and I believe that we can definitely take care of these things within the canyon, no different than we have in the past, but we need to be sensible, have some focus, and have a good idea of where our money and what it's going to cost.
Thank you. Robert?
I believe the grand jury report was pretty accurate. There was gross mismanagement going on, poor oversight on the board, but I'd also like to point out, according to the grand jury report, that it was this board that did bring about change and stop what was going on. I also agree with the grand jury that they did urge us to merge with another company for the betterment, the long-term future of our district, not company, our district. But yes, I do agree with the grand jury report, and I think you should all read it if you haven't already done so.
Thank you. Sean?
It was an interesting experience for me. I had never spoken before, grand jury before. And when I went in there, they said, well, we've got 2 hours and we've got a bunch of questions we want to ask you. I said, well, how about you just allow me to talk? And you can ask me questions at the end. And so I started, I had stacks of paper and data and information for them. And that was really interesting. I'd never seen so many people taking notes all at once. It's kind of like being a school teacher or something. They were really intrigued with the information and took most of what I had and Xeroxed it and copied it. And before I knew it, 2 hours were up. And they said, and I asked them, well, do you have any questions? They go, well, we're not sure yet. We have so much information from you. But we may call you back here. And I kind of wish they had. And I also wish I had brought more data. They, in reading the grand jury full report, they say, well, we didn't have copy of the board's minutes. Well, I had 5 years of them. I was more than willing to give them that stuff. I had lots more data to give them. But you must also understand that they were, this was not their sole focus. They had more than one issue that they were covering. And I thought they did a really splendid job of looking at, some little water district up in the hills, and they didn't have to do that, but they spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it was I would say there were 15 people in that room that were taking notes and taking down this information. I was impressed, and I appreciated their doing that, their investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Shinar?
Well, I urge you all to read the grand jury report. Unfortunately, it does hold this current board responsible for many things that they failed to do. Not out of maliciousness, but for instance, on page 11, Lompico, and this is the current board they're talking about, through a review of district records and interviews with past and present directors, the grand jury determined that the board of directors have failed to adequately perform some of the basic duties of a governing board. And they go on to cite many instances. For instance, the board policy manual created in 2009 was duplicated from San Lorenzo Valley Water District. Well, you can't compare the two districts. And they say they failed to, the grand jury observes that some Lompico County Water members were not familiar with using the rules of order and weren't familiar with the district. I know for a fact that a number of the current board members, it was a long, long time before they even took a tour of the district to find out what was going on. I'm not saying all of them, but many of them. And this was not, I think, out of maliciousness, but it was out of a lack of inquisitiveness. The board needs to question the staff constantly and can't just accept the fact that They didn't understand how to read the audits, which quickly confirmed that for years they have been operating at a deficit. Budgets were never balanced. Thank you.
We seem to have covered a lot of areas tonight. I'd like to ask one final question. What do you see is actually working for this water district? And we'll start with Robert.
Well, I'd like to just recap on the accomplishments that we've made in the last couple of years. Our banking and accounting has moved to the county, thereby making our books more transparent. We have developed a board policy manual, updated our personnel manual. Directors can now see all the bills that need to be paid. Board oversight is the one that discovered the embezzlement, by the way. Everybody now pays ready-to-serve charges and late fees, if applicable. Everybody, because not everybody was paying ready-to-serve charges, and there were some people that weren't paying late fees. Everybody's treated the same. Delinquent accounts are now followed up on. Foreclosed homes are placed on property tax bills so we get our money. We repaired 6 tanks, thereby saving thousands of gallons of water daily, and energy costs and electricity. We're now able to take our pumps offline periodically during the day, whereas before they were running 24 hours a day. We have replaced the MEMCOR filters in the treatment plant after about 12 years at least. They've outlived their life, and we were still using them, but we've replaced them just recently. We brought our finances from the red back in the black and have been paying all of our bills. This current board has brought this company back from the brink of bankruptcy. Hydrants and mains are now flushed on a schedule, and we brought a hydrant back online after 4 years of being offline. We have a cash-only policy, thereby discouraging any more embezzlement, and board direction and policies are being followed unlike before.
Thank you. Sean? Not you.
One of the things I think that's really good, and this goes back through my whole lifetime. I've known my cabin since I was born. It's an old family cabin, and I've lived there about 40 years now. I've always had water. Always had water. Now I do live at the bottom of the canyon, so I'm have a luxury in a gravity-fed system. When there were times when other people came to my house to take showers and do things like that, and but I think that's important. I always had water. What else do I think is really good about the water system? At my insistence, I also started the Lompico powerhouse back in the 70s. At the same time we were redoing the water system, I insisted we put fire hydrants everywhere. And, we are one of the rare places in the San Lorenzo Valley to have fire hydrants everywhere. I like both of those things about the water department of Lompico. Thank you.
Thank you. Shanae?
My faucet is working. Every time I turn it on, I get water. Sometimes it doesn't taste as good, but it's working. Lois Henry is working. She's working very hard. Yes, she is. Rick Harrington is working. He's working very hard. He's the reason that the delinquent accounts were put on the tax rolls. He's the one that brought that information to the board. Not that the information wasn't there in the water district. It was right in a file called Ordinance 3, which sets all the rates. I signed it. I was the one that, as president, that signed the authorization with the county to put that into the tax rolls. So there are a lot of things working, and there are a lot of things that need to be fixed. But we must move ahead. We can't keep looking at the past. What we must do is decide on whether or not we want to maintain a water district here. You know, merger with the San Lorenzo Valley is not a new issue. We've had this conversation many times, and they've been just as unreasonable in the past. What I'm hoping is that I'll be elected and that we can restore the financial stability of this district, and I believe that can happen, and I believe we have the capacity to do that. Thank you.
All right, Shervin.
Well, I'm extremely happy to hear everybody tell all the good things about the water district, because it seems like all we've talked about is bad things about the water district, but in fact the water district's in great shape. We have good infrastructure, we have a plan at least to replace things, or at least I'd hope to think we have a plan now to replace things per a maintenance schedule. Our books are in the black. That's a positive thing. So financially speaking, we can definitely move forward without having to look at the past. I think that the fact that it's local is a positive thing, and I know that's a personal statement, but I think it's definitely a positive thing that we own our own water. Water is becoming more and more scarce these days. If you notice, all resources are under attack, and they're being globalized. They're being sucked up by corporate entities. The fact that you have your own water here, you should be very proud. I'm very proud of the fact that we have our own water. So I think those are all very good, positive things. I think we have a plan in place, and if we put a plan in place, we'll be in very good shape for the future. And once again, I encourage everybody to think about the money, because for a lot of people, especially in Lompico, it comes down to the money. So if we can replace everything, get everything fixed, and do it for less than what's been proposed otherwise, then I say we should at least look at that. And otherwise than that, I think there's a lot of positive things here that, hence the reason everybody came here. I think everybody really is concerned about the water. You wouldn't have shown up here if you didn't think a lot about it. And I'm hoping that everybody takes this experience away, decides what's the best thing to do, and then vote accordingly. And I'm glad everybody came here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're now ready for 3-minute closing statements by the candidates, and we will start with Sean.
I am glad we did move to the county banking system and book system. I think that was a really good move on the part of the water company, the board of directors. I asked for it earlier, didn't quite get it when I was on the board. I'm also glad that we have changed the whole front end of the system, where incoming pay of bills and stuff like that is handled in a different manner than it used to be, and that we don't keep cash on hand, that we don't accept cash in through the front door, that we've modified a lot of things to make the system tighter, make it less problematic. And that has changed the way that it has changed our accountability. And I think that's really important. And like I say, I think we should give out the password, and all of you can watch the books happen as they show up on the county records. This is a very good thing. It makes it, talk about transparency. You get to see the books happen. You get to see deposits and payments and what they were for, what our expenses actually are. I hope we can go ahead and upgrade the system, that we can find money to do upgrades. It's a difficult thing in today's world. Things are not good as far as money. And like I say, maybe we can borrow from China or something. But somebody must be willing to sell bond money, and get interest back. Because as far as I'm concerned, there's enough fix that has to be done that it will have to be paid back in long term, it cannot be added to our bills. It is, we're talking, $1 million or so. And that is not something that we can just divvy out among 500 houses and add it to your water bill. It is a large amount of money. And you will have determination on this. A board of 5 does not decide to get bonds and then tell you about it. No, on bonds you vote. You vote yes or no as to whether you want this improvement to go ahead. So I think we're in a good place, honestly. Thank you.
Robert?
Well, first of all, I'd like to again thank the League of Women Voters and the Lompico Community Center for bringing us all here, and all of you that have shown up. If I'm elected, I'm looking forward to working with whoever else is elected along with me. I'd like to thank all of you for your support who voted for me last time, and I would like to work for another 4 years for you. And keep in mind that I will always support the will of my constituents ahead of the thoughts and the wishes of my own.
Sherwin?
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and thank the LCC for hosting. It's important for everybody to be able to state their opinions and be heard, and I'm glad that we had the forum to do that tonight. I'm running to keep it local, and I'm really willing to put my money where my mouth is by putting together a 30-year plan, by getting real-time quotes and budgets, and trying to put a real financial picture to what right now, in my opinion, has been a financial spin. I have strong project management and construction experience, and I think that's going to go forward. Most of the problems I see related to the district are construction-related projects, infrastructure-related projects, and financial products. And I have a strong background in both financial and construction project background. I feel that I can add that energy and push and help, actually not push, but help the board go in a forward, positive direction for this day forward. I think they've done a good job up till now. I want to add to that and try to continue bringing the district forward, and I want to try to do it the least cost to all of us. And I thank everybody for the time. Thank you very much.
Shannara?
Well, I want to thank everybody too, and especially the League of Women Voters for stepping in and hosting this event. When in 1987 I mentioned that the district was in trouble before, and without the consent of the water district, the county took over the paying of the bills and the collection of the money. And I want to point out something to you. This is an extremely costly method on which to pay your bills. The district has to provide all the necessary information, prepare everything except writing a check, deliver that information down to the county, and then the county writes the check. There's double work that's being involved. I understand why it happened, but it has never been necessary before. We operated this district with bookkeeping in-house. Patrick Gill, as the manager, went to school to learn how to do double entry bookkeeping so that he could teach the secretary how to do that and maintain that as a double entry bookkeeping. We have not had that since. We have no receipts that are issued for monies received. Your bill gets stamped, paid. These are the kind of things that need to be sorted out and changed, and I admit that there has been some direction, but I don't believe, quite frankly, that there's been enough experienced members on the board in order to be able to do this. And I speak directly to the fact that, yes, we fixed the water tanks. Finally. This report was issued to the president of the board, Rob Hansel, over 18 months ago. And the expenditure to be authorized turned out to be $6,500. And I asked myself, why did it take so long to do that? Why was it so hard to make that decision? Well, maybe they didn't get the report. Maybe the board members weren't told about it. But, again, I have to ask myself, why did it take so much time? If I'm wrong, I will stand corrected, but it has to be proven to me I'm wrong. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all the candidates for wanting to do public service in an elected position. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you, for coming out to want to be better informed constituents here. Thank you very much.